together to implement the Sustainable Development Goals towards 2030 and beyond. What is IDFC? The International Development Finance Club.
Good afternoon to you all, and a very warm welcome to this workshop on how to accelerate PDB engagement, so the engagement of public development banks with climate-related issues. My name is Claire Richalier. I am the head of the Mainstreaming Climate in Financial Institutions initiative and also team lead at the Institute for Climate Economics. So this event has been co-organized by IDFC Climate Facility, E3G, ECF, and Growald. I think with the idea of providing some insight and trying to identify some priority topics for public development banks to maximize their engagements. So we've got quite a dynamic discussion plan for today. It's going to be separated into two parts. The first part, we're going to be hearing from some experts who are going to be presenting some of their latest research on the needs of public development banks. And then in the second half of the discussion, we'll be having a conversation with practitioners so that they can tell us a little bit more from their view about what they need. So without any further ado, I'm going to be starting by passing the floor over to Edgardo Alvarez, your General Secretary of ALIDE, the Latin American Association of Development Finance Institutions. And so I'm very honored to be letting you do the keynote for today.
Thank you, Claire. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. But let me call you friends, because this COP and all COPs provide you something. You get in touch with people that you normally know just by email, and now you have the opportunity to face them, to talk with them, to really be in touch. So it's really good, because of the COVID, we began to work at home. And a lot of people prefer to, I just prefer to work at home. I don't want to be at the office. But you can miss something that is part of our natural, from our nature, which is to be in touch with people, to talk, to smile, to get in face, to look at the face. And if we are bankers, I'm a former banker for my whole life, and now in the ALIDE, Banking Association of Development Banks, you need to see the face of your client in order to see if he's going to pay to you or not. So it's something that you can see with this, because I can't provide any worksheets and balance sheets and flows and everything. But you do need to know the character of the person. And to know the character of the person, you have to meet in person. Until now, I don't know. The artificial AI intelligence could do something, but I don't think it could do much better than we do with all the centuries of living. Well, just talking about what we're talking, you know, I don't have to say, climate change is a really threat that knows no borders, and which all of us are exposed. For that reason, the PDBs are taking the role they have to take. It's mean leading and taking the responsibility of raising funds to lead the transition, because in all these meetings, I just lost the quantity, because some people say millions, trillions, I don't know, but we know that there is needed a lot of money to get what we want. And we have recently been witness of the devastation through the extreme climate events in Latin America. We see the drought in Argentina. They didn't have water. It happened the same in Uruguay. They couldn't have clear water, so they have to mix the salty water with the natural water. So it's amazing. The Hurricane Otis in Acapulco. Acapulco was extremely nice and beautiful, And suddenly, the hurricane appears and everything was destroyed. And finally, the torrential rainfalls and flooding in Dominican Republic. And this is something I can't tell you because I was there. I was there in this bloody Sunday in a wedding, and I could see all the rain coming, and I see the cars floating in the streets, and even one car was crashed by a wall, and I just passed from this avenue 30 minutes before. So it could happen to anyone. So even that you are here, that you do live in Europe, you could be in any part of the world, and you are under attack. Really, our continent, our world, is under attack of this climate change. So that we urgently need for Swiss two measures, as well as the commitments that the development banks has adopted to contribute even more decisively to the fulfillment of the goals of the Paris Agreement. This means not only raising more funds for climate investments, but also ensuring that the money goes where it's tuned to objectives, particularly for the goal of reaching zero net emissions. No? The PDBs face these challenges, and they are structuring the instruments of public policy of and they are an instrument of public policy of our governments. So this is a very good thing, because the PDBs are the financial arms, are the people that normally in the government they say we are the bad people of the family, because you are the no, it's not possible. It's not possible because everybody asks you for money, and the PDBs there's no money for everything. So you must do something, and you must prioritize this. So the PDBs are striving to take a collaborative approach. We are well aware about cooperation among banks. We've seen this. I've been in this room 2 or 3 days ago. I don't remember exactly. It was 3 days ago. And it was extremely nice because we work with people from France, from Germany, from all Europe, and well, you had the voice of Latin America. And it was extremely nice to know that all of us, we have the same thing in common, the same problems, and we face and we try to work in the same way in order to get to the goals that we have. I'll give you one example. In Latin America, we are making under the Green Coalition for the Amazon. It's an initiative that gathers multilateral banks from the Amazon region. It means from Brazil, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and Guyana, and Ecuador. So the idea is that the development banks will work and try to find a better solution for the Amazon. And one of the words that Aloisio Mercadante, the CEO of BNDES, who is leading this coalition, said, okay, we know we need more oxygen, so let's plant more trees. But don't forget who's under the trees are the people. So we don't have to forget the people. And we don't want that to do something for the people living in the Amazon to do some other experience. So take them away, buy their land, and after this, what are they doing? We're not working for people, and we, the PDBs, our first initiative is to work for the people of our own countries. So this is something really, really important to do. Well, let me mention some aspects we must fulfill as PDBs in order to get to the climate finance commitments, no? You must get involvement and commitment of the senior staff and the government bodies of the PDBs. If not, you are nothing. It's something in the morning we have a very nice breakfast. And it was one of the points we mentioned. We must incorporate environmental and social risk management systems within bank decision-making process. If you don't have this, you're just talking. But we must have tools for monitoring and quantifying emissions in the projects we are financing. We must define a clear portfolio of decarbonization strategies, and we must strengthen the capacity buildings. As you know, 20 years ago, the PDBs, at least I know, I'm talking for a while now. In Latin America, we have people that knew how to analyze projects, how to develop projects and this. In the 90s, they were taken out. So we lost this capacity. Now we must begin with the capacity building of this, because I've seen projects analyzed by banks, like the commercial bank. I've been a private banker, a commercial banker, and I know if you are a commercial banker, you just see the balance sheet and you see, okay, the ratios, and you pass. But for a project, you need more. It's not because you're looking at the future. You don't know what happens. Is how I told to the people that I used to work, how long it takes you when you drive, how long you look at the mirror. Do you know? How long? Tell me, 1 minute, 10 minutes? Well, almost nothing, because you're looking on the future, you're looking on the road. If you don't look on the road, you crash. And it's exactly what happened when you're analyzing these projects or these balance sheets. You are looking at the past. And not only the past, you are looking at the dressed past. Because when I've been also a commercial finance manager of a company. When you go to the bank, you present the papers. And you present papers on December, each trimester. And obviously, you try to put the best figures on that. No? It's like, what is nice is to see the persons when they wake up without makeup and without anything. And this is something that we as bankers, we need to, and we need with the projects also. And more in projects because you are facing the future and you don't know what's going on in the future. You see this beautiful city. It's beautiful. But 3 weeks ago, it was flooded. Because you don't see, unless I haven't found places where if there is a lot of rain, where the rain goes. So they are not prepared. Well, if it happens once in a while, there's no problem. But what happens if this once in a while happens each month, each year, each week? You are going to have problems. So we must think in the future what's going on, what are the threats, and we must work on that. Well, we must align the public policy with climate taxonomies, of course. We must dispose the appropriate financing sources in terms of cost and quantity. It is something that we will always talk about this, the opportunity and the cost and how it gets to the lower projects. Last but not least, we must attract the private sector. We were talking about the private sector in the morning. Everybody wants to receive money for his investment, so we must have a balance on this. 2 days ago, I was talking with a friend of mine. Oh? Do you know where the money now is? It's in the private sector, obviously, but who has the money? The money is in the hands of big companies. I better know. Well, big companies that receive funds from everybody, from the funds, from your pension funds and all this stuff. You must know there are 2 or 3 companies, big companies. And they invest, and they must have some kind of policies regarding to this. If not, we are not going to get what we want. And finally, we have to have better coordination with governments, agencies, and regional bilateral like you, and multilateral financial institutions, because if not, we don't get the same. Well, to conclude, we know there are no easy things to achieve the objectives of decarbonization, reduction of emissions and commitments, and goals like this that are established in the Paris Agreement involve cost. But we know that future benefits will be far outweigh them. And for that reason, let's make climate finance the driving force for our efforts. Thank you, thank you, a green and positive journey, and together I think we could do more. Thank you, my ladies and friends.
Thank you very much, Edgardo. I think that was very, very inspiring, and thank you for putting the people back at the center of our conversation for today, not just because they're the most affected, but also because I think we collectively are all actors of change, and I think that's why we're going to hear now from some experts who've been talking to these people over the past few months and few years even, for a lot of them. And we're going to jump into today's discussion, with Laura Sabogel, your Senior Policy Advisor for E3G, Public Banks team, and you'll be presenting some of the work that E3G has been carrying out on alignment with public development banks. The floor is yours. You have a presentation? Yes. Okay, you can start.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Claire, and thank you once again, Edgardo, for those inspiring words. Indeed, as Edgardo very eloquently put it, we're facing a mammoth task. It's a titanic reformation and rethinking of our systems in order to enable countries to have a fair transition where the people and the planet are also at the center. Here at E3G, what we have been doing, E3G is, for those of you who don't know us yet, we are an independent climate change think tank. We work across the board on all things climate. I specifically lead the work around Paris alignment, and our goal is to help the 500 plus public development banks in the world become climate champions. So in the spirit of this work, we have been working very closely with some IDFC members recently, and this has been going for a little bit of time. So we started in 2018, originally in the shape of a report called Banking on Reform, where we took a look at some different multilateral development banks to try to understand what it meant to be Paris aligned. This was only 3 years after COP21. I must confess, I was not there, but from what I understand from my colleagues, it was a very confusing moment for public development banks because suddenly they were asked to be Paris aligned in their financial flows, and most of them didn't really understand what that meant. And that's the origin a little bit of how this first report came to be, where a methodology was developed. And then we had, 1 year later, a sequel of this event, of this report, focusing on development finance institutions in Asia. And then in 2020, we realized that the amount of information that was required, and that actually one of the main things that we could contribute to was precisely that, collating information, collating, benchmarking, providing best examples to other banks. That would be a helpful thing. We decided to launch our tracker. So we actually made these 2 reports. We translated it or transferred them to our website, and we made it a living piece of work. So that's where we stand right now. And since 2018, we have done a lot of work. We have more than 15 banks already in the matrix. And now we are currently undertaking the assessment of FMO, the Dutch Entrepreneurial Bank, as well as the Central American Bank of Economic Integration, KBI. I've been working very closely here with Evelyn, and it's great to see her in person after so many months of Zoom calls. And we are also working on other IDFC members, supporting them in this process, thanks to the generous support of the IDFC, of course. So there's a wealth of information. The matrix actually looks at each of these banks across 15 metrics. For each of these metrics, we have 4 categories. So banks can be ranked anywhere from unaligned all the way to transformational. And we have defined very clearly what does it take for a bank to be there. I think one of the main things that I want to emphasize here is that context really matters. It's not the same to discuss Paris alignment with a multilateral development bank that might be, for example, in Europe, where it has a very robust policy framework at the national and supranational level to support its efforts, that we were discussing what a national development bank is doing in a developing country. So I think context really matters, and we really try our best to integrate at every single part of our evaluations and this analytical process that understanding. And I want to share with you some of the lessons learned that we have had and we have collected over these past 5 years. The first thing is that progress on Paris alignment is not evenly distributed, and it's not even linear. We have seen, for example, that external conditions can change really fast. We had seen the European Investment Bank make a total pledge to phase out fossil fuels. And when the energy crisis happened, we saw a very fast change in the position of some member states of the European Union to revert that decision. That didn't happen, but that shows us that the Paris alignment path is not always linear. And neither should it be, because it's very important to say that context matters once again, and it will not look the same for everyone. There's not one specific pathway that will, copy paste. The World Bank will have to take a different path that CABEI, for example, will do, the national development banks, and so on. And here I want to emphasize what Edgardo was saying. Collaboration is absolutely key. Coordination is absolutely key. And I'm very happy to see at this COP the launch of new ways of collaborating, such as, for example, the MDB joint country platform approach. These are ideas that are still pretty early on in their thinking, but have a lot of potential, and national development banks and bilateral banks have to be a part of that conversation. Paris alignment, so for those banks that started this process, so multilateral development banks, those were the first ones that were called, let's say, to report. No, they were the first that were put on the spotlight. Since 2015, we have now reached the stage that the joint multilateral development bank group have a joint Paris alignment methodology, which they are using for all of their investment decisions. And even more than that, some of them have gone further. For example, the Inter-American Bank of Development, the World Bank, the AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, also have developed their own methodologies. So we are seeing that we actually now have something more tangible. No? Like now it's actually a little bit more clear what does it mean to be Paris aligned. It's no longer so, somewhere an abstract concept. And of course, this is bringing a lot of challenges, no? Because it's one thing, the political signals that we're seeing, and we are seeing great things happening, no? Like we saw President Ajay Banga from the World Bank announce that they're raising their climate finance target to 45%, which is great. But how does that actually translate at the operational level? And this is where I think a lot of work still needs to be done, and where there needs to be a lot of collaboration, because of course we need to tinker those methodologies, and there's still room for improvement, although of course we recognize that this is a great step. And here I want to say that we are progressively moving onto a more difficult task, but a very necessary one, and I want to highlight the work that IDFC has been doing in this. It's one thing to discuss Paris alignment in the context of multilateral development banks that have many more resources in terms of staff, analytical capacity, resources. They have a broad set of shareholders that they can draw from. The story is very, very different when you look at national development banks in developing countries. They only have one stakeholder, their government. They have to answer, of course, to the needs of the people. And I think it's super important to highlight, we cannot, there's been some tension in the debate of the reform of the international financial architecture in terms of climate and development. And these two things, they cannot be pitted against one another. They're both incredibly important. So the analogy from the head of the BNDES, I think, is very pertinent. And because of this, it's really important that the banks that are further along in this path help the banks that are just starting, national development banks, subnational banks that have less capacities. So it needs to be a joint effort. And with that, that also means for our work, some questioning, no? What does it mean for us? We started this exercise in 2015, and now we also need to rethink how we go about our work. In the case of the multilateral development banks, it has an element of scrutiny, of course, and transparency. In the case of national development banks and the work with IDFC, it's really about supporting them in that process and using the information that we have collected over the years. So I'm not going to bore you with this, but this is some initial thinking that we have been doing, essentially a lighter version of our methodology with the metrics that we think are foundational, because you need certain things that will enable you to go further in your process. I'm very happy to discuss some of these with you. But I think the fact of the matter is that this process will require a lot of, like I said, collaboration, hand-holding, and we are very happy to be in this process and helping this thanks to IDFC. So where next? There's a lot of things that need to be said, and we're going to release a paper. We just released a paper with our partners from the Climate Policy Initiative on Paris alignment differences between multilateral development banks and national development banks. And some of the findings that we made is that different institutions have different results and pathways, and those are mainly influenced by a series of different factors that include their political economy context, their institutional capacity, as well as their distinct mandates. And yes, this morning we were in this nice breakfast that Edgardo was making reference, and that was confirmed by different stakeholders that were there with us. And in this context, E3G has partnered with IDFC to support its broad range of members. It's 26 institutions. There's massive institutions, small institutions. And here I want to share a couple of very small things of our first institution, which is CABEI. We are in the process of finalizing this analytical work that will help them, and we are in the process of structuring what that roadmap looks like. Like I said, progress is not linear, nor is equally distributed across aspects. And here it's really important to mention that just because a multilateral development bank has more capacities, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's performing better. And CABEI has proven that. CABEI, I want to highlight some of the great things that they're doing that some of the bigger banks are not even there yet. CABEI has a best practice in terms of their accounting methodology for greenhouse gases. They actually go all the way to scope 3, which is, I think, incredible. CABEI is also a leader in its issuance of green and blue bonds in the Latin American Caribbean region. That, of course, is much needed to crowd new sources of finance. It has very clear integration of climate in its sectoral strategies, which, again, is not a given. And finally, and I think this is really worth highlighting, they have a very robust inclusion of the notion of transition finance, which is particularly relevant for the continent and the, let's say, member countries where they operate. Because, again, the transition needs to occur. So the bottom line of this is that what we hope this exercise will help with CABEI, and this is actually the reason why we're doing it, is to help them, provide them with a snapshot that will be used as input in order for them to chart their strategy. The findings show that they will need more support, and Evelyn will tell us a little bit more, but this at least will help with the prioritization, and we hope that all of the information that we have collected over the year, of all of those recommendations that are evidence-based, will be helpful in this process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing your work and reminding us, I think, that it's a journey, that we're not all starting at the same place. We don't all have the same constraints. And I think what we like to see at the mainstreaming initiative is what matters the most is the ambition, probably not so much the results or the way you take to get there. So thank you very much for sharing your work. And I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about that also with some concrete examples a bit later on during the panel discussion. I'm now going to pass the microphone over to Mustafa. Mustafa Kleischer, I think pretty much everyone in this room knows you, but for those who are online and who might not know you, you're climate facility expert for the IDFC, and you'll be presenting some of the work that you've been launching recently on empowering PDBs in sustainable energy.
Thank you, Claire. Good afternoon. So I am Mustafa Klesh from the IDFC Climate Facility. I don't know if you are all familiar with the Climate Facility, which is now the Climate and Biodiversity Facility, because we included that since last year. The role of the Climate Facility is, in fact, the operational arm of IDFC, helping members to increase their capacity in climate finance, but also in biodiversity finance, in nature finance, I would say, in general. We've provided some support on knowledge sharing, on capacity building, and also trying to help members to seize opportunities of international finance and also on different sectors. So what I'm going to present you here is just one program where we just started, in order to help members and helping PDBs in general on the energy, which is energy is a very important issue. And we have, as you know, we have to deliver a lot for that. And the idea is to on the pilot basis, to try to see how we can help members at the early journey to integrate energy policy and to make their first operation in the per se on the sector. Next slide, please. Sorry, I have it here. Just to show you this figure, I'm not going to be very long or very technical, just to give you some snapshot about the situation we have in energy. Just to show you here, what are the challenges before us? As you can see, this is a very recent publication from McKinsey showing for Africa, which is maybe one of the most promising continents in terms of energy, what are the needs for investing in energy. And you can see that for the different kind of energy, hydrogen, mini-grid, power transmission, and renewable energy, that's only for before 2027, we need to invest more than 300 billion euro or dollars to get there. I mean, to meet the Paris Agreement goals. I'm not talking about at the end, and the right end of the slide, what we need to invest for 2050 to get net zero. It's about $3,000 billion to get there. So a lot of money to be invested. And when we say that that we have to do a lot of efforts, it's really a big effort. I'm not talking about Latin America. I'm not talking about other continents, just for Africa. But the good news we have here is that, and you can see that this renewable energy is not anymore a dream of some technicians or experts dreaming about a world with renewable energy. It's really coming true. As you can see, for example, in the case of different continents, because as we have now is in EU, in US, and in China, this is really going very fast. And you can see this exponential growth of investment in those countries. We never have seen that in the past. So this is a very good news that it could happen. If somebody who would say to you that 20 years ago, I think that we haven't believed it. So now it's coming true. And you can see, for example, the electrical car in China, it's more than 25% of the new cars are electrical cars. And this is very new. It's just the last 2 to 5 years. And this is also the case for solar and wind. So this is one first good news for Africa and other continents, is that we have now examples of very rapid growth of energy investments. The second very good news is that the costs are going down. You can see here for the solar and the wind that the costs are decreasing a lot. So there is no anymore justification of saying, we used to say that renewable energy is very expensive. So we realize today that this is not a good justification, because we have now the cheapest cost in the history, but it doesn't mean that we increase the investments on renewable energy. So it means that reasons are elsewhere. So we have to identify these reasons, these constraints, and to see how come that these costs are as cheaper than, for example, for the nuclear, for the coal, or for the gas, and even we are still investing in those fossil fuels. So this is where come our program, just to try to see how we can take the opportunities of the trends that is going on the different continents, on Europe, and US, and in China, and also the costs that are decreasing. So there is the technology, there is the investment. So now we have to see how we can implement that in those continents, on this area where it's still lagging behind. So I think that's the first thing we can maybe talk about is that for PDBs to take the opportunity, we cannot, in the past it was very easy to say that I'm going to finance some few pilot projects, one from here and there, one wind, one solar, and without having a strategy, without having a vision of how to do that. Because it's not the same to finance, for example, off-grid or on-grid, to finance a private company or public company. So these things should be put in a strategy. So it is important to have a policy, an advisory also capacity for helping the clients to define well their project. So this is the first piece of as condition for maybe banks and any stakeholders to enter this market is to have a clear vision of their role, of their added value on what they can do in this sector. The second is to have a technical assistance. As we know that this is very important because what we know is the renewable energy is a technology which is not easy. It is a difficult one, new one. And also what is important is that we have small actors. If we compare, for example, for the fossil fuel sector, industry, you have a big majors which have a big, I mean, no bank will refuse to finance Total or BP or Shell. It's not a problem because they have 70 or 80 years of experience. They have a big balance sheet. And for a bank, it's wonderful. No need to have, I mean, the risk is close to zero. But what we have in the renewable energy is small companies, small, having very short track record, a maximum of 20 years of track records, very small balance sheets. So we need now to finance them on the project finance scheme, which is more complicated than on balance sheets. So this is something we have to, so this is why it is important to look at all this risk and to provide them some support. So technical assistance is really very key to help these actors to improve their projects. The third thing, which is most important, but it is also, my point of view, it's consequences of the two other, is project and investment. But without having a policy, without having a capacity to help the stakeholders, it's very difficult to have very long-standing activities in this sector. Maybe I have to accelerate. Sorry. So the objective of this program is really is to increase the pipe. At the end, what is the most important is to increase the pipe of projects of investment of sustainable energy finance. Just not talking about renewable energy, but also about social aspects, economic aspects. So this is why we talk it sustainable energy finance. It is an important aspect to not leave behind people on this project. The second is to enhance capacity of PDBs, whatever they need, to be capable to discuss, have a dialogue with their government, and to improve the institutional framework of the sector. This is important to have this capacity. And to increase, also to help the local players. And this is important for the banks to play this role of coordinating the different stakeholders to ensure that the pipeline of the project could be at the good quality. So I'm not going to enter the detail of this theory of change. It's true, maybe just to tell you that the activities we will have is really to help the banks in analyzing their markets, and also to provide them some technical assistance, and maybe also in terms of organization to help them to define what is the best to deliver. And this is a program that is funded by Growald, and we are going to make it on the pilot basis for a very small number of banks, with the idea to scale it up once we get something which we think it is good for to be scale up. I stop here, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mustafa. You were right on time, and I'm sure you'll get some questions after this event on your theory of change, and some people that will want some more information on what it contains. And we're going to conclude today's introductory presentations with Luis, my colleague from I4C, project manager at I4C, who'll be presenting some of the great work that actually another institution has been carrying out but isn't around today, the New Climate Institute with RENAC. And he's going to be presenting some of the scoping study and a diagnosis that they've been carrying out on some of IDFC's members to identify where the needs, the capacity building needs are.
Thank you, Claire. Hi, everyone. So, so I'll be presenting this for, as Claire said, for New Climate and RENAC. So it's a program, it's the first phase of a program that sought to understand the needs and the gaps from the PDBs and the IDFC members. This is the draft program for the Climate Finance Fast Track Onboarding Program. The first part. Ah, right. Okay. The first part of, so the agenda, the first part is the survey and the interview results that I'll present very briefly to give an idea of what has been the answers from the PDBs. The second part on the theory of change, which is slightly simpler than Mustafa. And the third one, the proposed assistant program and the elements of format of the program. So on the interview results, I think it's important to say that eight banks participated in the interview. The very, very important part, I think it's which climate measures have the banks already undertaken. The most answered, the highest amount of answers we get with collaboration with other development banks, which probably reflects also the fact that they are answering this report. But also the integration of climate considerations in environmental and social policy. But then the very important part, what they have not included in this so far, and this have been we have a climate strategy, so only one bank answered that, and only one bank also answered we have set a quantitative climate finance mobilization target. So this becomes somehow the focus, one of the focus from the study, but of course there are others. Other barriers to setting up a climate strategy, the lowest one, and then here it inverts, the lowest barrier is limited capacity in terms of financial resources, these are banks, but the highest one is limited capacities in terms of human resources, and also coming right after the limited understanding of climate risks and opportunities. This is also reflected in the main barriers to assess and manage climate risks, which the main barrier is a limited capacity in terms of human resources. So it's very consistent, the fact that we need to hire people, we need to train people, which also reflects on the need of this program, on the relevance of this program, the IDFC program. But then also the main barriers, the lowest ones are very similar to each other, which are limited understanding of what is needed, of available tools and technical resources. So somehow, even though these are not high on the answers, it's also some needs that should be addressed. Going forward, the main barriers to scaling up financing of climate mitigation activities. The lowest, actually this is the same for both, for adaptation and mitigation activities, is a lack of mandate. So the banks do not see this as a main barrier, but then they understand the difficulty in identifying suitable projects for mitigation as a very important one, and for adaptation, inverting a bit, the difficulty in identifying and the lack of suitable projects become the main one. How do you currently identify climate finance opportunities? The main two ways actually are engagement with local communities and market study to understand demands and needs. And the main barriers to mobilize private climate finance are the limited technical knowledge and coming after lack of human resources. I'm going into the theory of change, which is so the main point here is to understand first to bring these pilots of IDFC with this project, and through this is to raise awareness among the pilots to increase climate financing volume and participating banks on track to reach 2030 climate targets. The next part, the next phase of the theory of change would be to roll out this to interested IDFC members. Here, the club contributes with full capacity to meeting international climate goals, and the IDFC significantly exceeds its climate finance target. And then finally, the idea is to blow this and maximize the impact by bringing this to all other interested national development banks, and then bringing them up to speed on this. An overview, and I'm going a very overview, kind of brief, but the idea here is of the program is to start with a self-evaluation of banks. This is very important, also building on what Laura said, context matters. Like we have to understand what is coming from the different countries and what the banks have the capacity already or what are their needs. And this to build two parts. One is a general training, component one, and this is mostly theoretical. And then the component two, which is a bank-specific assistance, which goes a bit more into the practice and trying to respond to the specific needs of each country and bank. The first part is on the self-evaluation. The objective is to, well, as I mentioned before, is to identify the needs of each participant and specifically to assess current climate relevant activities and processes that they already have or they might need, assess current state of financing of climate mitigation and adaptation activities, and the third, reporting and disclosure. From the self-evaluation, the first part is the theoretical one, the general program, the component one. The idea is to build awareness and create knowledge and some topics that have been out there. And I think this is where the collaboration between banks is so important, because some banks have been doing this for a while. Some MDBs have been evolving these practices that should be spread and shared with others. And this is part of what we'll build into this first part of the first component of the program. So coming from general introductory modules on taxonomies, support mechanisms for FIs, climate finance instruments, carbon trading, the different instruments that are out there, to building a climate finance framework with geo-accounting, key principles and concepts, and ultimately going, this is still the general program, to the specific training of the general program. So introduction to different mitigation and adaptation relevant sectors. So energy, agriculture, transport, water, and other green financial products. And finally, an introduction to climate specific market studies. So this builds the first step for the last part of the program, which is the specific one. The specific tailored program goes into the member-specific guidance and support on implementation of climate finance activities. These builds on specific climate finance in the country, the needs in the climate finance in the country, the climate finance opportunities in different mitigation and adaptation relevant sectors, the assistance to build a comprehensive strategy, and capacity building, basically, for building these market studies and identification of projects. The last part is the specific training, so the second part of the tailored program, which is an assistant module to accompany the first operations and an assistant module to set up a climate appraisal process to assess the first operations. It's important to say that all of these will have a very mixed type of trainings, so it will be through online trainings, in-person training, workshops. In this last part, it's expected to have some specific assistance. So real getting in contact and seeing with the banks directly what is needed at that point, and trying to develop that in a tailored fashion. I think this is, so on the way forward now, there is a call that is to develop the second part and to implement this, and it's to be seen. This is coming later. I think Mustafa can talk a bit more of that. Yep, please, Mustafa. Oh. Or maybe. Yeah, I can hear, you know.
Just to say that for this program, we launched the call for proposal, and we received 5 proposals. So we will create, it's a mix between think tanks and consulting firms. 4 banks will attend this, will participate to this program. CDG here, and we have also BC online and colleagues from CDP, and 1 non-IDFC member, which is IDC, a bank from South Africa. All these 4 banks will receive the assistance for that. So as we're saying, a direct and indirect assistance with and this is also a pilot-based program. The idea is also to take lessons on the implementation of this project and to make it available for every other PDBs. And thank you, Luis, for that presentation.
Thank you, Mustafa. And That's it. Thank you all.
Oh, thank you, Luis. Very excited about all these different programs that are kickstarting, already ongoing, and I'm extremely excited to be hearing from the people, the actual people that will be benefiting from them. So I'm going to, I think 2 of them are going to be online, and 3 of you are in person today. So I'm going to maybe ask you to come and sit here with me, if that's okay. Online, I believe we have Bise. Paula, you're, I think, Head of International Relations and Sustainability. I hope you can hear us. We also have from Ghislaine Nouril from the Caisse des dépôts et gestion du Maroc. You're with us here today. From CABE, also with us today, Central American Bank for Economic Integration. We have Evelyn Maria. Thank you very much for being with us. You are climate expert at the Office of Social and Environmental Monitoring. We're lucky enough to have from DBSA Olympus Mantata, Director of Climate Finance, the Development Bank for Southern Africa, sorry. And last but not least, from the Croatian Bank for Reconstruction and Development, online with us too. We have, I hope I'm going to be pronouncing this right, I haven't had a chance to ask you, but Drazenka Kostelak, Advisor to the Management Board. I hope you can both hear us properly. Maybe we can sit down if that's okay, and we can start the conversation together here. Thank you. Yes, can you hear me? I think, I think it works. We need to keep it close to our mouths. So we're going to ask you a little bit to provide some concrete experience and examples after what we've just heard, all these different supports that are ongoing and that you might be receiving. We'd like to hear back from you on what these are, how these are helping you, and how these are making you change your internal organization. So we've asked you a couple of questions. I think we're going to start, if that's okay, with Bise. Paula, can you hear us correctly? Yes?
Yes, excellent. Yeah.
Good, great. Paula, I understand you've expressed interest to take part in the pilot phase that Luis was just presenting for the Fast Track Onboarding Program, which is about to be launched by the IDFC facility. I was wondering if you could please share with us some of the reasons why you think this program might be of interest for you, maybe reflecting on the benefits they could have and what the needs you have internally as an organization are.
Yes, excellent. So as well, many of you may not know, but BICE is a national development bank, and we play a key role in Argentina driving sustainable economic growth on the country. So as Edgardo Alvarez was mentioning at the beginning, most of national development banks, we don't have only to accompany, or not only to finance green projects or green finance, but also we have promoting proactive investment and supporting our companies to expand to develop foreign trade. So it's a mixture of both of these things. So in this sense, we are knowing this growing awareness internationally of the challenges that are globally, the need of transition to a more sustainable economic model. As Carlos also was mentioning, the drought we had in Argentina was really big last year, and it was this year, sorry, because it was 2023. We are almost finishing, but we're still on 2023, and this is urgently shifting the transition to a more sustainable economic growth. So it was important for us to participate on this program, because we have not only the importance of becoming a greener or more sustainable bank, but also we as a development bank, we have a key role to translate this into the whole financial system in Argentina. BICE plays a really key role as a catalyst and facilitator in the transition to these sustainable financial practices. So for us to learn on better practices, it's better because we can translate it into the financial system. For example, I want to tell you something that it's we just started working. For example, we just started working this year together with the World Bank. We are providing technical assistance. So BICE is the first bank to having the a risk and technical a risk assessment on environmental and social practices. And we have seen that the whole financial system in Argentina is being lagging behind. So, for example, we started this program with the World Bank to provide technical assistance to Argentinian financial system as a whole to build a more robust social and environmental risk assessment system. We are working now with 7 public banks in Argentina, but public commercial banks, and 1 mutual guarantee society, which for us is exciting because we are not only working with banks, but also with guarantee societies. We can provide a lot of a lot of opportunity for small and medium enterprises to access to credit. This is a very first stage. We just started working like a month ago. This is a very first stage project, but we are hoping to grow, as Mustafa was saying, with the program, with the onboarding program Mustafa was mentioning. We are also wanted to grow this program for 30 financial institutions in Argentina by next year. So for us, it's key to learn and to grow and to learn from other banks as well, other national development banks and other multilateral, because we can also translate it to our whole financial system. As well, for example, another example, we just last week we did with the EADB, the Inter-American Development Bank, we did an assessment, an impact we help with our impact assessment methodology. You know, we did a workshop in the region for the whole region, and we brought together several. It was a more practical workshop. So we brought together first some ideas on how to do impact assessment. We brought our methodology, but other government agencies as well brought their methodologies, as well the AFD from Paraguay. And in the end, the workshop ended up with several banks coming and saying, how would you evaluate this, for example, this credit line? And then several advisors will help them on how to build a more robust way. So the important of this is to enhance the design of credit instrument for companies and improve evidence-based decision making, which is key. So we as a development bank, we're not big in Argentina in terms of how much we are lending. We are first tier and a second tier bank. We're not we're not big, but we are key in how to help other institutions from the financial system to build up their knowledge. I don't know if.
Thank you very much, Paula. Thank you very much, Paula. I think, yes, that was very clear and very interesting to hear how you see yourselves as instrumental to transform the global financial system, even because of your role as a PDB and not just because of your size. So that's, I think, very interesting and very nice to see as well that you consider that you have a leading role to play in that sense. Thank you, Paula, for those first remarks. I'm going to now turn over to Ghislaine Nouril, your Director of CDG Group for ESG Policy. Similar question to you, Ghislaine. I understand that you're also a candidate to the pilot phase that we're just talking about from the IDFC Facility pilot program. What specific challenges do you face in mainstreaming climate across your institution? And how do you think, which needs do you think need to be addressed in priority, and how do you think the program will help you with that?
Thank you. So, it's okay. So I would just like to make things in their context. We at CDG, we are a group of multi-activity. So we have different subsidiaries in the banking branch, in the insurance branch, industrial zones. So as I presented yesterday, we are developer, operator, and financial institutions. And each subsidiary is really moving in this field, in this sector, with different speeds. So we have some subsidiaries already accredited Green Climate Fund. We have an investment fund already having its ESG charter, including ESG and climate consideration in their process. But we have other subsidiaries where there are nothing. So the ambition today is to build a common framework for everyone within the group to build in this same trajectory in terms of climate transition and as well in terms of ESG. So when we are talking about challenges, the African continent is contributing only about 3 to 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions, according to OECD. So we have a small contribution, but we need to mobilize flows and capitals to help the government and the private sector on their transition plans. So it makes our mandates and purpose more complex and difficult. So we are joining the Climate Facility Program to enhance our capabilities and capacity to address climate issues within the different activities. So just giving you an example, we are trying to have a split in terms of financing, investments, we have loans, we have bonds. So just tracking what kind of projects and what kind of emissions we have, it's make the exercise more difficult. So in terms of challenges, we have to estimate our carbon footprint within different portfolios in different activities. We have to report as well. And we have the mandate to accompany the government in the transition plan. So it makes us, it's a challenge for us, but it's an exciting journey. So we would like to be involved in different working groups, in different programs and facilities to raise awareness internally, because people, you have the early adopters, but you have as well some people who are considering climate as something which is parallel, not integrated within the activities and within the business model. So I think that we have to work internally on raising awareness, and we have to work as well externally with policymakers, with the local institutions, private sector, to create a kind of certain dynamic within the market and to lead this topic in Morocco.
Thank you very much, Ghislaine. I think you added yet another dimension to the discussion here by sharing some insights on what it means for a group. And I think, I'm sure Laura from ETG will agree with me here. We've heard a lot of conversation in this COP, particularly on how challenging it can be depending on the type of institution you are, the mandate you have, the instrument you use, and how sometimes the journey is not the same at all in the objective, despite having the same objective and shared objective. So very interesting to hear how some of these challenges can be can take place within the same group. So thank you very much for that insight. I'm now going to turn over to you, Evelyn, if that's okay, from the Central American Bank for your Economic Integration. Evelyn Honoria Rodriguez, you're climate expert for the Office of Social and Environmental Monitoring, and I understand you are currently preparing your climate strategy. And Laura mentioned it earlier. You're also, I think, about to finish the alignment assessment with E3G. I'd like to know how the assessment you had with them and the work you've been carrying out with them fed the climate strategy.
Thank you, everyone. It's so nice to be here among all of you and learning from all your good experiences. I think that coordination and cooperation among institutions is what makes the COPs so rich, like Edgardo was mentioning at the beginning. So for us in CAVE, it's been just a great timing. We started working on our climate strategy before we started with the assessment for Paris Agreement alignment. Then we have been moving within some changes in our governance structure. We just started with a new presidency. So we had to put that climate strategy on hold because it will then go through all the different spaces that within the bank you need to go for the approval of a strategy, right? So we put that on hold, but it was just the best that could had happened because then on this ending of the year or the beginning of next one, we will have finalized this assessment that give us great recommendations and insights of how we can improve our current draft of climate change strategy so we can be Paris aligned. And I take a few thoughts with me during this process that are great. First, I think it's so good to have an external look on us that give us an x-ray of how we are doing and how we can improve, but from the external eyes on us, not the internal ones, because from my experience being a part of the environmental and social office in CABE, it's like everything that sounds environmental or social, they go and ask us. But it's not just about one office, it's about the whole institution. So when we were requested for information about how we are disclosing information, financial states, business strategies, how the business areas are working with the countries, what sectoral strategies we have, like I have no idea. I look at the environmental and social safeguards of the bank. So I had to go and ask other areas in the bank. And like I'm explaining, so we are being assessed against the Paris Agreement alignment, how we are doing. And then they start thinking, oh, okay, so that kind of fashion about climate is not just for your office. It has to take a look at what we are doing. And like, for example, from our accountability department, like when I was asking, so how we are engaging with TCFD disclosure, or how we are reporting under some standards about sustainability, he's like, at this moment we are not doing it, but we're being talked about it, and like it's something that we have to start doing soon. But it requires so much technical assistance. It requires also to have the human capacities that Luis was mentioning, that we lack the human resources or the technical knowledge to get to those parts of the Paris Agreement alignment that we need. But it's good to have this x-ray because it gives us a full diagnosis or what areas we have to improve, and that it goes beyond just ESG. It goes to your whole structure. So I think that was the best thing to begin with, because then when we got the first draft, we were also saying, okay, so it's not like we can say a lot about it because it's just this external diagnosis. We can clarify some things that maybe weren't understood as they are really happening inside the bank, but we share with the whole bank, with all the areas. So I don't know if all the areas read it, but some of them did, and what their feedback was about is like, oh, wow, this is really important. This is something that should have a momentum in the bank, and let's hope the new presidency takes this and we move forward to a new strategy for us that take us to the leading side of climate finance in the region, because we are a highly vulnerable region in the world. Central America countries have been on the global climate risk assessment on the top 5 positions, like in the last 6 or 7 years. Honduras was the first in that risk assessment, like for 10 years in a row. So we do have a need for climate finance to be growing and for climate action to be really embedded in the business models of everyone. So, but for that, in order to do that, we need to start reinventing financial mechanisms and to reinvent the multilateral development banks and the national banks, because from our region, I think also that the standards we put are the ones that are being cut and copied or scaled up by the commercial banks or the subnational banks. So it's a good way for public development banks and multilateral development banks to raise the bar so we can get everyone there. And the third message I take from this experience as well is that, as Laura mentioned, context matters. Not all of the 15 metrics are really important for us or are doable at this moment because of the context of our region. Like, we are small developing countries where energy access is a priority, but know what type of energy you're bringing, if it's renewable or not, just to get the energy to the people. Same about biodiversity targets. We are a mega diverse region, but committing to targets like zero deforestation, it's so hard because we don't have even like a full map that takes a close look at what our forest areas are, who are in there. Like land titling is an issue for us. So to have a target of zero deforestation when you have no titling, land titling done, it's really hard. So we have a lot of challenges, and that comes from the context of the level of development we have. And I think it's a good takeaway that you and E3G have from us, that context really matter, and that not all of the 15 metrics are applicable to all banks. But like you were mentioning, ambition is the driving force and the most important one. Even though we are all in different stages, at least that is what is driving us towards this goal, the Paris Agreement goals, the 3 goals, because it's not only to have temperature hold below 2 degrees or 1.5, it's also to invest in climate adaptation, the same in proportion that climate mitigation, and for a highly vulnerable region, climate change adaptation, it becomes more relevant than climate change mitigation. And the third one, about transforming the economic models. So that means that you have to reinvent and transform finance as has been done historically.
Thank you very much. Again, very inspiring. I noted that context is very important. I also noted that, again, I think that mirrors what the people speaking before you just said, how you have a leadership role as a public development bank as well for the broader for the financial system, but also for the broader economy, and how you can engage with the government with that. And also, I think you also insisted, and I think it's very important, on the importance of engagement and ownership and ambition inside the institution, and how you as the climate finance team have that role to play also to get everybody on board internally. So that's great. Thank you for that. I'm now going to turn over to the third panelist that's in the room with me, Olympus Madanta, your Director of Climate Finance with the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Now, I think you have a slightly different experience here, because I understand you took part in the assessment study, which we've been talking about, that IDFC has been carrying out throughout the year. But I understand you also benefited from a just energy transition strategy support with that from IDFC. And on top of that, you're also currently beginning work with E3G on assessing your portfolio. So you have a very good view of the support that IDFC can provide its members. So considering this very rich experience, could you perhaps please share with us what you think the main challenges are and the needs regarding Paris alignment and mainstreaming climate more broadly across your organization? What internal capacities do you have available, and how are they going to be developed?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for the invitation. The DBSA, I'm sure most would be aware, we are mostly in the infrastructure space, and I think that informs the things that I thought I would talk about. And I thought I would maybe talk about what we are looking at in terms of focus going forward, and then reverse that and talk to the challenges in trying to achieve exactly that. So the thinking we have been having recently as a bank is to really start thinking about in your infrastructure development and implementation, how do you go beyond just looking at hard infrastructure to looking at ways of ensuring that you include biodiversity, nature-based interventions in how you do things. And so that's a bit of a change for us, if you compare to, how we would have done things before. And so we have found that partnerships are quite key in trying to change that focus in strategy. For example, what we learned in some of the projects that we have been implementing, especially with Jeff's support on work around catchments, is that in many ways, when we are looking at hard infrastructure on the water side, you would not be looking at upstream or downstream interventions of biodiversity nature that increases the efficiency of the hard infrastructure that you are looking at developing. And you find that when you look at those interventions separately, the ability to finance your nature-based interventions on their own becomes challenging. But if you start thinking about development of your hard infrastructure that integrates those components that are key for its efficiency, then your financing is looked at slightly different and makes it easier to integrate and then finance. And in that regard, you need to be partnering with the right institutions that know what they are doing in that area so that you are effective in what you are doing. And we are looking at putting a lot of thrust on that, and we think we are onto something quite important in that regard. And I think it will change in many ways how we approach financing. The other thing that we have been looking at is, and again, that's what we have learned in implementing some of the projects, especially with the Jeff in this case, is that traditionally we have always had well-developed safeguards, but our focus would have been to say, you want to identify environmental impacts, and then you'd look at how you would mitigate any risks that you identify. But what our thinking recently is to say, we need to go beyond just addressing those impacts, but really significantly looking at how our infrastructure interventions could be nature positive. So what it then means is that, again, when you go to the drawing board from how you finance infrastructure, you would look at the normal way that you'd look at infrastructure financing, but also pair that in terms of how you implement the project with interventions that would help your project be nature positive, but not really in the sense that you want to blend the financing. But if you like integrating the project, but still separating the financing because of the challenges in trying to bring that together. And we think it's a very, important intervention. We are looking at doing a lot of that. Actually, we have started on a few initiatives. And, of course, the more you talk about these issues, you start talking about your internal capacity to be able to do exactly that. And, that's where sometimes it gets to be challenging. And that is why for us, our involvement, especially within the IDFC and interactions with members and the interventions that we have are quite key, because they help us a lot in getting to the point that we need to get to. I was actually just listening to, the colleague from Kabe talking about, I don't know whether it was the presentation that was made, but the well-developed criteria around transition financing. It just triggered a thought in my mind because, you know, at the DBSA, you know, we made a public statement that we would cease investment in fossil fuel, you know, projects unless there is a well-defined, robust transition plan. So it was good to make the statement up till we start going back to our investment committees, and the question becomes, what is a robust and unambiguous transition plan? And you know, we didn't have a very good answer to that, and of course it comes back to us to say, yeah, this is what you have been encouraging us to do. So what do you do with that? So I was thinking while sitting there that I need to talk to you and see what you have done, and we can pick up from that and enhance what we have in place. Because what we have in place at the moment is really just a guideline that really needs to be developed to a robust framework. So for me, that is the beauty of the IDFC and the ability to learn, you know, among, you know, members. But the other thing I wanted to talk to quickly is that, you know, obviously developing, you know, appropriate financing instruments always is an important intervention. We've been talking recently to one of our commercial banks in South Africa around developing, you know, I think what colleagues are familiar with, more an outcome-based type of funding initiative. Very interesting because we started to look at how we can start, you know, using especially our accreditation with the likes of your GEF, GCF, to put that in place specifically for biodiversity projects, not only in South Africa, but in the region. And it's very exciting what we think we are getting to because of the interest and the potential of leveraging significant financial resources, not only from commercial banks, but mostly from your institutional investors. So, you know, that has been the direction that we are taking. But again, when you look at all this, it goes back to what is the level of your capacity in place as an institution to be able to deliver that. We see more opportunities than we can be able to handle from a capacity point of view. We see more opportunities than the expertise being at the level that you are required to be able to deliver effectively. So that is, you know, quite key. So I think that is why for us we think these interventions are very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olympus, and thank you for putting climate and biodiversity on the same level. I mean, you were not the first one to speak about biodiversity, but I think it's important to remember that as well. And thank you also for insisting on how capacity building is important to be able to seize all the opportunities that you as public development banks have, to mainstream climate finance more broadly into the economy, and how it's important, particularly at operational level, to have this capacity building throughout the organization. And now to our last panelists. I hope you can hear me, from Ashbor, Croatian Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Draženka, can you hear us? You're
yes,
advisor to the management board? Yes?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Well, my name is.
Yes, I was just gonna, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I just maybe, if you don't, I'll just introduce the question and then I'll let you maybe introduce yourself again. Similar question to you, because I think you also took part in the needs assessment that IDFC facility has been carrying out this year. And if you could share your experience, challenges, and needs regarding Paris alignment and mainstreaming more broadly into your organization, and maybe reflect a little bit on your internal capacities and what is available and what is to be developed. Sorry, I'm just reminding the question for those who are online and maybe just joining in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Draženka Draženović-Kostelac, and I'm from the Croatian Bank for Reconstruction and Development, HBOR, as we call it briefly. I currently work as an advisor to the management board. HBOR is a Croatian state-owned bank. It was established 30 years ago with the main purpose then to reconstruct the Croatian economy after the war we were having in beginning of the 90s. But now it is a development bank that promotes sustainable development, export financing, and especially low carbon transition of the Croatian economy, among other activities. The beginning of our green finance development started around 18 years ago with no legislation in place and with no clarity and certainty regarding sustainability of projects that were related to climate, mostly renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. Our role then was to cooperate closely in working groups with the representatives of the different ministries that were in charge for renewable energy projects, fund for the environmental protection, and all other entities relevant for the development of the necessary legislation. In that way, we were at the very source of the information, and we were able to influence on the development of the regulations, with the main purpose to make potential projects more clear and more stable, more certain for the financing stage. We were also then beneficiaries of the Global Environment Facility Grant through the World Bank. That was an intermediary, and we, at that stage, we financed the preparation of the renewable energy projects, meaning we financed all the necessary documents that were needed to prepare a bankable project. That was very important to kickstart that development of these kind of projects in Croatia. After that phase, we received funds from the German Development Bank, KfW, for the project called Promotion of the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Projects in Croatia. Then we were offering technical assistance along with the loans for the implementation of the project. These loans were approved based on the concessional terms, on concessional conditions, below market interest rate. At that time, it was very difficult to find ready, mature, and bankable projects in the green finance domain. So we organized trips all around Croatia, and we were trying to find even project ideas that seemed reasonable at that time. And then we worked closely with the investors and helped them with these technical assistance to make those projects bankable and ready for our loans. This year, we finished the project, a very important project for our bank. It is called Reorientation Towards Sustainable Finance. The project was funded by the European Commission, DG Reform, and we developed an action plan. The action plan is currently in the implementation phase. Current challenges and ways to moving towards successful climate and biodiversity finance are now focused on few concrete issues. First, there is very complex sustainable finance regulation, and they require that financial institutions like our bank, like HBOR, fundamentally alter business operation. To mitigate and manage risks, it is imperative that Harbor should strengthen its business practices and to adjust to new regulations that are coming. It is CSRD requirements. We also have expectations from the European Banking Authority. And our mandate and goal is to support Croatia's green transition to maintain profitability and growth. The way to overcome these issues and challenges is to prepare for the financing of the Croatian low carbon economy. And we are planning to do some issues in way to simplify guidance documents to be provided to smaller market participants, because majority of our companies is in the micro or small segment. And we would like to help them to achieve their sustainable goals through our financial instruments. We would also like to engage larger clients in the climate sensitive sectors in Croatia. And we must soon, it is very urgent for us to initiate EU taxonomy KPIs collection. We are also planning to develop a sustainable finance product framework and prioritize KPIs and integrate these KPIs in our current reporting framework. This is everything that is in front of us in it will happen very soon. We also need to understand large client decarbonization pathways and strategies. And we should develop even more favorable pricing terms and conditions on green projects and to meet needs of clients and overcome market barriers. These more favorable conditions include discounted pricing in the form of lower interest rates, possibly sustainability-linked products with longer grace periods. We are also trying to extend the maturity of project finance loans for clean energy investments up to 18 years. Now we have 15 years. Also, it will be dependable on the project risk and context of the project, of course. We are trying to reduce the equity contribution requirements from the clean energy infrastructure projects. We are also aiming at developing promotional and awareness building programs to attract bankable, sustainable projects that are ready to finance here in Croatia. We are also expanding partnerships to access concessional financing and grants to scale up investments made under the project finance methodologies. We are also trying to improve our guarantee schemes and project preparation facilities to develop even more project pipelines. We are also developing financing solution for strategically important clients for Croatian economy. And we are de-risking low carbon and transition investment with guarantee mechanisms that we are now evolving in the bank. Also, Harbor can scale up the use of the blended finance for sustainable investments because it will allow Harbor to mitigate multiple risks like technology, economic, payback risk, credit risk, and test new business models and ensure appropriate risk sharing with private sector commercial banks and cover additional transaction costs on new business models. And finally, our financing and investment goal is to strengthen and to accelerate the green transition and to support the overall sustainable society in Croatia because we are a national development bank. That is briefly from my side on our goals and everything that we went through in these 18 years and our plans for the future.
Thank you very much, Strazenka. There's an alarm just gone on in the room. I hope it's not too serious. I think that means we're getting close to time. Thank you very much for that presentation. I think it was interesting to have a European bank's perspective too, and also bringing in some interesting perspectives on how capacity building also helps you with complying with regulations and better understanding them. But also, I think I also noted that we spoke earlier about seizing opportunities through capacity building, and I think you were also showing us very well how capacity building also allows you to create opportunities and to identify new opportunities. So I think that was also extremely interesting. I think we have a few minutes for questions, if there are any questions from the audience, or I see Mustafa.
Just one information, just to mention that for the E3G assessment, we have, after KBE, we have also 3 other banks involved in this program, DBSA, BOAD, and CAF. I wanted just also to thank the European Carbon Foundation because they co-finance the program for the climate finance onboarding program. This is why we have the opportunity to include one non-IDFC member. It's the first program for which we can do that thanks to the contribution of the European Carbon Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you for the context and congratulations on the new members and participants in these different programs. I don't know if there are any questions from the audience before I pass the floor over to the concluding speakers, because we have two. Otherwise, maybe I would have one, but I don't want to take the microphone from anyone else. No? Well, maybe if one of you, in that case, could just reflect in a few words, maybe on the importance of capacity building, also, I believe, to create a culture inside the organization and to really mainstream, but at the highest level and throughout the organization, what capacity building can do to help with that. I mean, you all touched upon it a little bit, but I think having a very strong culture of climate change and mainstreaming climate change within the organization is very important, and capacity building is one of the ways to get there. So I was wondering if there are any other ways to get there, and also, how capacity building can help you with that. If anyone wants to take the question, there's no obligation. I see maybe Paula is nodding, so I don't know if, and you would also, Ghislaine, like to take it. Thank you.
I think it depends on who are the beneficiaries from the capacity building and technical assistance. Because we are struggling in emerging markets, we are struggling on project preparation. So we need technical assistance inside the bank to help us on how to evaluate projects. For sure, we are building our ESG systems, ESG and climate management systems, according several standards like performance standards from IFC and others. But we need as well internally to enhance, to build capacity for people, from analysts, from investment people, and other functions. So this is the first step. The second step is building capacity for our clients as well. Talking from previous experience, so IFD, BRD, EIB, and KfW were launched the kind of program, Moroccan Energy Sustainable Financing Program, including financial solution plus technical assistance for the banks and for clients, for the private sector, plus incentives. It was a real success, and I think this kind of composition or of facilities can help a lot to create a dynamic within the market. This is the first thing. The second thing, it's a question for IDFC Secretariat if they are preparing kind of programs to help emerging countries on how to access loss and damage funds. So it's very, very difficult for us. I know that it's a topic which is complex, but now we can have this kind of something which is new with this COP28, and we would like to know how we can access this kind of funds, and if there is an ambition within the IFC Secretariat to do it.
Thank you. Now I want to answer the question on behalf of IDFC. Olympus, you also wanted to add something to that, and then I'll pass it over to Paola. That's okay.
Now, just a very short thought. My experience is that, we have an effort of embedding climate, biodiversity, and the rest of these good things within organizations. Your credibility really rests on your ability to translate the ideas and the intentions into action. Without capacity, you do not achieve that. So it's important to pick up your capacity. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you for adding that. And Paola, did you want to respond? It seemed like it.
Yes. Yes, I think that I was really represented when they were Muncabe, they were telling their experience and saying that when they talk about environmental, they always think and look at the area and say, okay, this is a crazy environmental friendly people and they have to take an opinion on this. Okay, so we started a program in the bank to build up 10%, with capacity building, with up 10% of, we call it sustainable ambassadors, but really it's actually people that are promoting in different areas of the bank. So it's all over the bank, the sustainable issues, not only environmental, but also social. So this is changing the culture of the bank. This is one thing. And the other thing, yes, I also wanted to mention it is really important to build capacity on our clients. With our energy efficiency credit line, we found out that most companies, they did not have the capacity, but they did not know basically what energy efficiency was. So we built up projects that we went into different provinces. This year, we train like person to person, we train more than 400 companies, but as well we have our online community, which is helping to build up knowledge on different issues, including energy efficiency, renewable energies, how to mainstream gender into their operations, as well as sustainable issues and how to manage them. So basically, it is really, really important, not only for inside internal, but also external.
Thank you very much, Paula. And I think you will have had the concluding words from the speakers. I think you all deserve a very big round of applause. There's a lot of work still to be done, but there's already a lot being done. So that's very good. And I'm now going to turn to our two concluding speakers today. We're lucky enough to have two. I think you have a little, so we've still got enough time for both of you to take your time, and it's not easy to share the floor, so don't feel pressurized with time. That's what I mean. So Ariane, I see you standing, and you're probably going to start. Ariane Cornujouab, Program Manager, You're Program Manager Climate Finance at European Climate Foundation. And also then we'll be hearing from you, Carolina Aguirre, Associate Director, Field Innovation at Growald. I don't know which one of you wants to start, but Ariane, then the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. So I guess I'm going to take a bit of a step back and say that it was super refreshing to hear from what is actually happening on the ground during this side event. I think at COP this week and this year, we've heard a lot about IFI reform of the MDBs, and we're talking a lot about quantity. And it's important to remind ourselves that in order to have more quantity, we really need to focus about quality. When we look at IDFC, it represents 600 billion annually. FIX is 2.5 trillion. So if we actually work towards Paris alignment, we can. It's the only way we can reach our goals. So I think it's really important to have the programs that Mustafa presented that really focus on the PDBs that work on the ground in Croatia, in Morocco, in Argentina, and so on. And that we're super proud at the European Climate Foundation to be supporting the Climate Finance Fast Track onboarding program that really can really support PDBs to become real actors of the transition, of Paris alignment. And also, I was really happy to hear you talking about biodiversity today. And so, yeah, I think it's great. I'm going to stop here because I think it was already a very rich side event, and pass it on to Carolina.
Thank you, Ariane. Very much echo everything you said, and I just want to hone in on one specific aspect of the role of PDBs, which is the crucial role they play in supporting the energy transition. They know the local, well, especially domestic and regional ones, they know the local context better than anyone. They have established relationships with domestic actors, as our colleague from BICE was articulating, and really, well, lending in local currency. I could go on and on, but I just wanted to go deeper into. You may be facing some internal challenges. You may be pricing. You may be complaining real and perceived risks for renewable energy. And as you were, for instance, articulating, this may be a case of the risk management committee not really having a good enough understanding of how to price risk for technologies that are not well known. It may be analysts that are really in need of more capacity. So we're really thrilled to partner with IDFC. We're very excited to empower you and support you in driving this. So yeah, just very excited for what's to come, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you all. I think we're not far off time. Yes, few minutes early, so give us some time to have a drink before the next event. Thank you very much, Mustafa, and all of you for organizing today's event. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Created in 2011, is a network of 26 public development banks. Our mission? Speaking with a common voice, to leverage a greater impact in major international debates, and to contribute to the implementation of the SDGs, the Paris Climate Agreement, and the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Our goals? Knowledge sharing and capacity building among the IDFC institutions, enhanced collaboration between members and partners, and pursuing advocacy on the role of public development banks. How does it work? All year long, the club is working on contributing to the international agenda, coordinating working groups on SDGs, gender, climate, and biodiversity, releasing common strategic and operational publications, and reporting their annual commitment towards climate and biodiversity. IDFC, let's work together to implement the Sustainable Development Goals towards 2030 and beyond. What is IDFC Climate Facility? Created in 2019, the facility has been supporting IDFC members in enabling knowledge exchange and offering capacity development on climate-related topics. Our 3 goals: to strengthen climate finance expertise and capacities, to originate and develop joint climate projects, to institutionalize and facilitate collaborative work among members on climate change. Our activity lines: knowledge sharing, capacity building, access to international climate finance, joint business opportunities. In the past couple of years, the IDFC had been supporting members in mainstream common principles on mitigation and adaptation, developing a framework for the operationalization of the Paris Agreement alignment, promoting a mentoring program between institutions, delivering climate toolbox including GHG accounting, climate risk assessment, Paris Agreement alignment and climate strategy, offering trainings on climate risk assessment, climate strategies, and adaptation, supporting events and partnerships to the international agenda, mobilizing resources and facilitating joint business opportunities and project proposal. IDFC Climate Facility. Let's work together to implement the Sustainable Development Goals towards 2030 and beyond. What is IDFC? The International Development Finance Club, created in 2011, is a network of 26 public development banks. Our mission? Speaking with a common voice, to leverage a greater impact in major international debates, and to contribute to the implementation of the SDGs, the Paris Climate Agreement, and the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Our goals? Knowledge sharing and capacity building among the IDFC institutions, enhanced collaboration between members and partners, and pursuing advocacy on the role of public development banks. How does it work? All year long, the club is working on contributing to the international agenda, coordinating working groups on SDGs, gender, climate, and biodiversity, releasing common strategic and operational publications,